Well, it's been a while since we've discussed Mortal Kombat on this channel, but man, there's been a few spicy leaks and some spicy details that have been dropped all over the place, so you know I had to cover them. So first things first, if you're not following a Twitter account called The Thinny and you're interested in being up to date with leaks and data mines, then you're missing out. So recently, The Thinny posted a tweet that simply said that Kombat Pack 3 was confirmed, which obviously sent fans into meltdown. You're probably wondering, where the hell is Kombat Pack 2? Why are we jumping to 3 already? Well, if you take a look at this data mine, you'll see a whole bunch of characters, and at the top you'll see that there is a Kombat Pack 1, 2 and 3. Much like a few people that I'd spoken to, I was really confused about there being a Kombat Pack 2 because I honestly thought that Aftermath was being considered to be that, but it turns out it isn't. NRS did previously say that they'd be supporting this game for a long time and wanted to keep providing it with new updates for quite a while, which is a different model than what we're used to seeing, because for a long time the common trend was for NRS to release a game, support it for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and then drop it for the next release. And they were doing that between Mortal Kombat and Injustice, so I think a lot of people just assumed that Injustice 3 would be the next game on the horizon. However, some new information has leaked, kinda alluding to the fact that that may not be the case. Now, I do not know if this can be taken as a credible leak, but it is nice information to speculate over. I found it exciting at least, and I thought you guys might as well. This could just be a publicity stunt to get more attention on Mortal Kombat, and it's actually not a bad way to go about it. So they start by saying, first I would like to deconfirm the leaks that have surfaced the past few days. What this person is basically referencing here is some older leaks that surfaced, not the ones we spoke about here. Doomslayer will not make an appearance in Mortal Kombat 11, neither will John Wick, Deathstroke or Michael Myers. Also, Injustice 3 will not be our next title, and that's some pretty big news. I had John Wick down as my top pick for a guest character in Mortal Kombat 11 because it just makes so much sense to have him there. He is literally the perfect fit for MK11, but alas, my dreams, they may have been shattered. Michael Myers was also heavily rumoured to be coming for MK11, but I always found that weird since the theme of MK11 is more like action sci-fi characters and Michael Myers is horror. He would have made more sense for Mortal Kombat X. This person goes on to say that we should stop believing everything we see online when there is no evidence, which is actually a fair thing to say. I guess when you're so starved for information and you want certain characters and certain modes in a game, anything that pops up you'll consume it and sometimes even believe it. That's not to say that's what any of us have done here. I think most of us are smart enough to not take it as the gospel truth and just have fun discussing it. I'm afraid I will not be leaking any significant information here, but I can tell you that there will indeed be a Kombat Pack 3. It will include 4 characters. 3 male Mortal Kombat characters and 1 female guest character, with one of the MK characters being an unfortunate bystander. Okay, firstly, that is some very significant information, and secondly, I wonder what they mean by bystander. Do they mean that one of the 3 male characters is just going to be an NPC? I'm confused by that. I'm not too sure where to sit on that. I don't really have any more information surrounding that, but I am a little concerned about it because there is a female guest character rumor flying around, like this one, and for reference, the person they're talking about here is Ash Williams. This person goes on to say, they started work on the character. There wasn't supposed to be an issue with Bruce, but he told them they wanted to release their own Evil Dead game first. That game got indefinitely delayed because of internal testing not going well because of what's going on around the world. Now, the Bruce side is asking for a lot of money to get the character DLC before the game. Warner isn't willing, but NRS is still trying to get this to work out. While things aren't looking good, they're not dead 100% as of now, but maybe they replaced him with the female remake Ash. A tragedy if that happens. And it's the last part that I'm not too happy about hearing, and I didn't know about this. If you're gonna put Ash Williams in the game, then put Ash Williams in the game. And if negotiations have broken down and you can't get him in, then don't. Please, for the love of God, NRS, do not gender swap this character. These days, I'm actually seeing less people insult MK11 as a game since Aftermath. Granted, it still has a lot of detractors, and I haven't played it as much myself because I still think fundamentally it is the same game. But it does look like things could be heading in the right direction for them, so do not do this. Trust me when I say, if you add a gender bent Ash Williams to this game, people are gonna come for your jugular, and you know damn well that they will. If you want to put a female guest character in there, how about Ripley from the Alien films? Or even better yet, the Bride from Kill Bill. People would go nuts for the Bride. She'd fit in perfectly into MK11, especially the whole action theme. As a matter of fact, I might actually prefer seeing the Bride over most other picks. Why has she never been considered? If we backtrack a bit to the other screenshot, it goes on to say that the content is on the way, but at the bottom there is a very significant piece of information, and it goes on to say, there are currently internal discussions on whether Mileena should make an appearance in the game as a playable character. Which I'm going to be honest with you guys, I started doing the KSI laugh when I read that. Of course they were going to discuss Mileena. Literally anytime you sign onto Twitter, there's some nutjob smashing their keyboard on Ed Boon's page screaming for Mileena to be in the game. Make no mistake, there's not just one of them. These guys come in like a militia, and as annoying and as toxic as they are, it's clear that Mileena is obviously a fan favorite and people want her in the game. Hell, I'd like to see her in the game as much as I hate to admit it. They have her character model now just because we saw her in Kitana's friendship, so it'd be silly to just sort of waste it, especially when she is that popular. So having said all of that, around the time these leaks were being dropped, Ed Boon also did an interview of the Daily Star where he spoke about Mileena, minigames, and leveraging the Mortal Kombat story. There's a bunch of things that we already know about Mortal Kombat shared in this article, so I'll take you to the more juicy sections of it. There's no need to run through the entire thing. Firstly, they mentioned minigames. The interviewer says to Ed Boon, "We've previously seen Mortal Kombat experiment with silly minigames, karting, chess, and even a puzzle fighter inspired minigame. Do you think that's the sort of thing MK could still do? Or has the series tone moved away from that? It feels like an expansion would be a good place to introduce something like that." Ed goes on to say, "Yes, to some degree, pretty much anything is still on the table. I would personally like to see one of those minigames return at some point, but we don't currently have immediate plans to do so. Also, Mortal Kombat is a bit more serious now than it was back in the days of Motor Kombat." Ed, that is not the kind of stuff I want to hear come out of your mouth. Mortal Kombat can take on a more serious cinematic tone, but there's still room for the goofy stuff. The game would benefit greatly from it, at least I think so. People loved those minigames, my personal favourite being Chess Combat. I'm sure everyone has their own favourite minigame from the series. Let me know in the comment section below, but that is disappointing to hear that they have no plans for them to return in this game. But I guess if we're being vocal enough, then we may see a brand new one end up in MK11, or maybe they'll just keep them for MK12. You could do Mortal Kombat Golf, Mortal Kombat Skiing, MK Tennis, MK Bowling. The possibilities are endless really, and I don't think it hurt the game in the slightest. More content is never a bad thing. So the interviewer goes on to say, "We've seen you on Twitter being vocal about some characters you don't want to bring back, Mileena. When browsing the roster of MK characters from the past, how do you decide who to bring back? Do you take into account movesets, lore, cool factor, or elements of all the above?" Ed Boon goes on to say, "Actually, I've never seriously said that I don't want to see Mileena in the Mortal Kombat games. Most of the time I'm just teasing the fanatics who demand she be added 100 times a day." So yeah, I told you guys, I wasn't joking about that. They're seriously the most relentless fanbase. Honestly, if you've never seen them at work, go onto Twitter, go onto Ed Boon's page and just have a look at the comment section. Literally anything that he posts, they will be there asking for Mileena. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it's about. Mileena's name will be brought up at least once in the day. And that's putting it very lightly. He then goes on to say, "I love to have fun with that. Mortal Kombat has about 80 characters in its roster now, so we need to look back and occasionally revive a character who hasn't been in the game for a long time, like we did with Fujin and Aftermath. We do take into account the story because some characters existed in different parts of the timeline, so we need to stay somewhat consistent with the narrative we are telling. But movesets and cool factor also play a big part in which character we decide to bring back. So what I take away from that is Mileena is probably going to show up at some point, probably towards the end of MK11's lifespan, because if there was any character that was going to shoot new life into Mortal Kombat when it's slowly dying out, it's going to be Mileena. Let's just face facts. There's no doubt it will get a ton of attention, so that's my guess for when Mileena is going to show up in this game. I think the last combat pack is when you're going to see Mileena. The other thing is that they look at the story when they're choosing a candidate to join the roster. Now I completely understand that MK is trying to be consistent with its storytelling and sort of separate itself from other fighting games in that regard, but also you kind of broke space and time with the latest iterations, so you can kind of just throw whoever you want in there and say they're from a different timeline. You can literally please any fan at this point. There's over 80 characters to work with. Just make it a Mortal Kombat Royal Rumble, kind of like what Tekken Tag 2 did. Just throw them all in there. So the new leak has given people hope for a ton of new characters to come in and maybe more combat packs to support MK11 beyond the third one. But what do you guys think about all this information? Are you excited? Is this what MK11 needed, or is it just adding more characters to a game that is inherently flawed? Now I personally think that adding more characters to this game is only going to help it. Yes, the mechanics and the systems, they may be a little funny, they may be a little weird or broken, or they just don't resonate with the larger audience. But I do think adding more characters and adding more content does really help. I do think we're going to see Mileena in this game at some point. I 100% believe that. I think she'll be towards the end of the game. Also, hopefully we're going to get Havoc and Quan Chi. I think those are two really big ones on people's minds. Also, I think it's probably worth mentioning that Darius and Hotaro showed up in MK11 recently with the recent patch. They appear in like one of those little banners that you can use for your profile page. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. I have heard talk about Hotaru in forums and a few people mention him, and even myself. I think Hotaru is a really cool character. I would love to see that character in Mortal Kombat 11. So maybe there's going to be a couple unsung heroes showing up. Maybe that's what they mean by bystander. We don't really know at this point. It is fun to speculate. I thought it was weird to see Darius. I don't know anyone asking for Darius. That might be one of the biggest wasted characters I've ever seen in a game, and thank God they're only playable, and I think it's just Armageddon. I can't remember them in anything else. But I thought that would be an interesting point to bring up with you guys. I think Hotaru would be absolutely fantastic. That is a really cool character design. But guys, let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. As always guys, take good care of yourselves, and I will speak to you all very, very soon. Peace.